Okay, I have that it's noon, so we'll get started. My name is Elise. Thank you for joining today for the Nutrition Bites Lunch Series webinar offered by the Wellness Center. I am the dietitian covering at the Wellness Center, and today's topic that we'll be talking about is healthy summer barbecues, focusing on grilling. So during today's presentation, we're going to discuss how to create healthy menus. We're going to talk about using healthy grilling techniques. We are going to discuss following food safety so that no one gets ill. And also, I'll share some inspiring recipes so that if you are grilling this weekend or later on this summer, you have some ideas to get started. Okay, so in creating our healthy barbecue menu, if perhaps you're the one hosting, you want to think about what you're going to offer. And as you design your menu, you want to think about maybe starting with some different lean proteins. That's usually what people are excited to eat on their meal often is what the protein being served. So lean proteins are going to have many benefits. Some have to do with the grilling safety themselves, but also that they're just going to be higher percentage of protein and less fat. So we have a variety that we can choose from. So depending on what your preferences are, if your preferences are poultry, USDA defines any skinless chicken or turkey as lean. Even the chicken thighs that are a darker meat, when they're skinless, still fit that parameter of a lean protein. With fish, the majority of fish is lean, so whether it's fin fish or shellfish, those are all good sources, high in protein. Just wanted to highlight here some of the omega-3 sources. These are fish that are going to have more anti-inflammatory fats. We sometimes refer to them as fatty fish, a little bit of a misnomer because they're still generally low in fat, but the fat they contain is very anti-inflammatory, heart healthy. So those are things you might want to include. Even something like oysters, which can be grilled. All of the ones listed here are also going to be lower in mercury options if that's a concern. There are lots of lean cuts of beef. I think that's a protein that some people stay away from because they have concerns about it for heart health and other reasons. But if you're purchasing ground beef to make burgers, anything 90% or higher is considered lean. Usually 93 is what I see available at the grocery store. But if you're looking to cook a steak, something like a flank steak or a sirloin cut are going to be leaner options that you can enjoy. And then also pork, cuts like pork tenderloin or pork chops, they're considered lean as well. Now, with the red meats, the beef and the pork, some people have concerns if that's part really of a healthy diet, but they do have lots of really good protein. They're high in vitamin B12, zinc, iron. So getting that variety is definitely a good idea, especially if you enjoy them. So we do encourage fish about 2 or 3 times a week to get those omega-3 fats, but we can still have the variety of the red meat in there as well. But of course, if you're a vegetarian or vegan, you might not want to have an animal product, so there's different options as well. So just some examples might be tofu or tempeh, putting that on the grill. If you're not familiar with tempeh, it's another soy product. It's sold in a patty form, similar to tofu, but it is processed differently and it is a fermented product. So it has some unique health benefits, being that it's fermented. It can enhance your gut health, so that's great. Bean burgers are another classic option for a vegetarian protein. Usually black bean burgers is popular, so something you can make on your own or purchase. So this is just a short list of some proteins, lean proteins. If you would like, I can send you a more detailed list in all of these categories with the recipes for the presentation. Okay, so after we think about our menu, putting our lean proteins on our plate, we of course want to load up on our fruits and vegetables. As you can see here, we want something that's really colorful because that makes it more appealing that we want to eat it or for our guests. So obviously fruits and vegetables are going to be very nutrient dense. They're high in vitamins and minerals that our body needs. They contain a lot of water. So during the summertime, when we're concerned about hydration, especially if it's hot out, they're going to naturally provide some of that hydration that our body needs. And they're also filled with fiber. As you can see in the salad with the strawberries, blueberries, blackberries, that's going to add a lot of fiber to that meal, which is going to help with satiety, giving you a feeling of fullness. In general, it also helps with blood sugar control, digestion, heart health, and so much more. So at our meals, we want to make sure we're getting some fiber in. And then I also encourage you to think seasonal when choosing fruits and vegetables. And I think during the summertime, it's pretty easy because that's what's abundant and available at your grocery store, or even if you're shopping at farmers market, they're going to have what's in season. Those ingredients are going to be really fresh, especially here in New Jersey. We do have a lot of great local farms, so the quality is going to be better. That quality is going to affect the nutrition. It's going to be higher in certain vitamins and minerals, and just, the taste. So I think Jersey blueberries, when you're getting them in June and July, nothing can beat them. Okay. And then we do want to include some, healthy carbohydrates in our meal as well. We don't have to, avoid carbohydrates completely, but we do want to focus on ones that are going to give us more of a benefit. So high fiber carbohydrates are encouraged. So some examples might be to have some grilled corn or this healthy potato salad that looks like it has maybe like a light vinegar dressing on it. So again, those benefits are blood sugar control, digestion, and heart health. Okay, and to continue to round out our healthy meal for our barbecue, we want to add in some healthy fats. Fats are another nutrient that our body digests more slowly, so they really help with satiety. So if we want to fill up on our healthy meal and not be tempted to snack on maybe some chips that are available or too much desserts, we want to make sure we're including some of these healthy fats. So the picture you have here is a caprese salad, but included in it also has some avocado. So we're going to add even more healthy fats with the avocado. And if you're doing any cooking oils, olive oil is a great cooking oil, but also avocado oil. It's also a monounsaturated, predominantly fat like olive oil, but it has a very neutral flavor. So it's not going to add that olive oil flavor to your food if that's not something that you're looking for. It doesn't really taste like avocado. It just tastes like a standard vegetable oil if that's something you've had before. So these heart healthy fats, they're going to encourage heart health, anti-inflammatory, and again, give us that filling feeling that we're looking for. Also going to make your meals taste a little bit better because fat definitely gives flavor to a meal. So focusing on those healthy fats is the best. Okay, and then we want to serve some low calorie beverages for our guest. So some ideas are fruit infused water. You can make a nice picture with a variety of fruits because that's going to just look very enticing and encourage your guest to want to consume that. You can have some maybe mocktails made out of a seltzer water or flavored seltzer. I think that's really popular right now. Some people want to enjoy a nice tasty drink but don't want to consume the alcohol. So that's a great idea. Another drink that I like to serve or drink in the summertime is a watermelon agua fresca. So you can easily look online on how to prepare that, but most simply it's just blending up your watermelon. I like to add a little lemon juice and lemon zest, and that's a really tasty drink because as we know in the name, it's watermelon. It's got a high water content, so it really makes a refreshing beverage in the summertime. And if you are serving alcoholic beverages at your barbecue or someone, is bringing them, I want to practice moderation. So for women, that would be 0 to 1 drink a day. For men, it's 0 to 2 drinks a day. And so if you are going to have more than one, think about having a glass of water in between. And it doesn't really offer too much nutrition, so we do want to be mindful about that. And even perhaps, even though moderation is up to 1 or 2 drinks a day, not drinking on a daily occasion, giving our body some time to process that in between. Okay, and then also desserts. It's the favorite part of some people's meals, but we want to try to keep those healthy as well. So we can think about offering desserts with less sugar. So one of the most obvious easy choices is to have fruit, which is naturally sweet, doesn't need anything added to it. As you can see, these delicious fruit kebabs. If you have children and you want to help them prepare, they might enjoy doing this because they can make a rainbow with the different fruit. If you cut it up for them, they can put it on the skewers and you can make a nice like dip with a vanilla yogurt to serve with that. Or think about if you're serving a more traditional dessert like a brownie, preparing that with a little less sugar, playing around with the recipes that you have. Found a lot of recipes can do well with, a little less sugar than what the original recipe calls for. Or also think about just serving smaller portions. That way people can get a taste but not consume too much. So I like this picture of the fruit tarts. They're nice and bite-sized. They're also, of course, including some fruit for some natural sweetness so that you can enjoy it but not go overboard on the refined carbs. Okay, so I want to talk also about some healthy grilling techniques and how this might affect the food that we're consuming. So in general, grilling is considered a healthy cooking technique because we don't really need to add too much fat to the things that we're cooking. But there are some concerns that have to do with really cooking at high heat temperatures. So if we're consuming especially the meats, the proteins that are well done, fried or barbecued, there is an association with some cancer risk. So the compounds that can be formed are called heterocyclic amines or polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. We can just call them HCAs or PAHs. And they are possible carcinogens. So the safe level of consumption is unknown because the data is still a little mixed, but there is some evidence that consuming these frequently can increase your risk of various types of cancer, including colon cancer, pancreatic cancer, and breast cancer. So I just think you should be aware and be mindful of how you might cook your proteins. So anything that's over high heat, above 300 degrees, and especially cooked longer, will have a higher risk of forming these compounds. The HCAs get formed when the proteins in the meat plus some sugars, especially if there's sugar in a marinade, combine at these high temperatures and form the char. So the char has a lot of these compounds compared to more of the inner part of the meat. And the PAHs get formed when the fat from the meat kind of dips down into the grill and then smokes back up and adheres to the meat. So that is why if you want to keep your menu a little healthier, opting for more of the lean proteins is going to be a benefit because not as much fat is going to melt out of those to encourage the formation of the PAHs. But there are things that we can do to reduce our risk. So marinating meats is one of them. Besides tenderizing the meat and adding flavor, it can actually reduce the number of the carcinogens, those HCAs and PAHs that are formed. And it doesn't take a lot of marinating time, just maybe an hour. It's going to add moisture, which can help prevent some of that charring. So if we decrease the charring, we're going to decrease those compounds. And it also reduces the stickiness on that meat so that the smoke may not adhere. So I think it's a win-win. We're going to add flavor, we're going to make the meat tender, and we're going to reduce that risk there. A lot of the ingredients that you might want to use in a marinade, they're going to have some health benefit as well. Some of them could be antioxidants and have other anti-inflammatory properties. So some common ones are rosemary, garlic, onion, tart cherries could be used in a marinade, and honey. Rosemary in particular, a study showed that it reduced the HCA compounds that formed by almost 90%. So that's pretty impressive for an herb that really does add some good flavor as well. Okay, and of course it's important to start with a clean grill. So this kind of starts when you last cooked and use your grill. At the end of cooking while your grill is still hot is a good time to go over those grates with a brush to get any of the residual meat and char off that might have collected. But if you did not do that last time you cooked, when you preheat your grill and it's hot before you put your food on, then you can make sure you brush it. Um, and then after that as well, it might be a good idea to just go over with a wet rag so that if anything residual is left, that will remove it. Also, some people have concerns about different grill brushes. So if your grill brush has metal fibers, you want to make sure your grill brush is in proper shape, that the those fibers aren't loose because you don't want that to get into your food if they come off on the grates. So after, if you have a brush with those kinds of fibers, then go over with your wet rag, and that would remove any. There's also different grill cleaners, like a paddle that's wood that will transform into the grates of your grill. So that doesn't even have any fibers. So that's something you can use as well. And then before cooking, you might want to take a paper towel attached to like a long tong, have a little avocado oil on that, and put that over your grates. That helps season them and prevent sticking so that you have less of a mess to clean at the end. And then, of course, think about before you start emptying the drip pan, if you're using a gas grill, that tends to collect the fat that comes off of our meat when cooking. And if that overflows, you could have a flare up, or if it just gets too full and close to the flame, we might have some problems there. So we definitely want to be safe and, of course, have a fire extinguisher nearby and know how to use that. So if anything does happen, you can handle it. Okay. We also want to avoid direct exposure of meat to the open flame. So really, when we're thinking about grilling, we don't need necessarily that fire to cook the meat. The grills, they're going to be hot, and that's what's going to do most of the cooking. And then also the residual heat that is in the grill, especially if um, your lid is closed, depending on how the recipe calls to cook for it. So just a medium flame is adequate to cook properly. And again, those higher temperatures is going to be more of the association with the cancer causing compounds. So if your grill has adjustable grates, which maybe like a charcoal grill might have more of that, you can put it a little higher so it's the food is further away from the flames. Or if you're very concerned, you can consider putting some foil down and putting some holes so the heat can escape through. Okay. And then, of course, it's important to cook thoroughly, but we also want to avoid overcooking. So we can monitor the temperature in various ways. One is a grill thermometer. That is going to monitor the temperature of your actual grill. So that's the picture here. And so that thermometer just goes on top of the grates. Some grills will have their own thermometer as well. Mine has it on the outside. So I like to go by both and see kind of what the discrepancy might be. But the one grill thermometer is really going to tell you what those grate temperature is at. Then also I use a meat thermometer to check the actual temperature of the meat to check for doneness. So I like to use an instant read, a digital thermometer because it's quick. It only needs to be inserted a half inch into the food. You want to do it into the thickest part of the food so that you get an adequate reading. And color of the meat is sometimes not the best indicator. A lot of people think, oh, if I see pink or if I don't see pink, that it's completely cooked, but it's just a guessing game. With a thermometer, you can really assess what the temperature is. And then also we can get close to it without overcooking it. Some people might tend to err on the side of safety and just, really cook something, which might, affect the flavor. Thinking about chicken breast, if you overcook that, it can be dry out, not as flavorful, and then we might encourage more char for cooking longer. So a thermometer is definitely your friend when you're cooking. And then speaking of if we do end up charring or burning the crust, as in this picture with this chicken, we can remove that. So I know when that happens, it flakes off very easily. So that is something that if you're going to, some people like it, but if you're going to consume it, think about, not doing it too often or removing most of it. Okay. We can also use our grill. We don't have to have things always directly on the grates, but think about how just it's a hot vessel, kind of use it like an oven. So we can use it to steam foods like cooking fish in a foil packet. When you're making potatoes on a grill wrapped in foil, it's kind of the same technique. So your temperature that you cook a lot of things in your oven might be about 350 to 400 degrees, and your grill with the lid on can achieve that temperature as well. So we can get creative with how we use the grill, and that way we're not maybe heating up the oven in the hot summer inside our homes. So if you're doing the fish with the foil pouch, you just want to poke some holes so that any steam in there can escape. Okay, so we'll go over a little more some of the concepts of food safety. The four basic concepts are to clean, separate, cook, and chill. Of course, if we're having a barbecue, we want to keep everyone safe and healthy, having a good time, and not being sick after. So the process starts with cleaning. So, of course, common sense is washing our hands before and after handling any food, but then also making sure that all of our utensils, our cutting boards, our surfaces that food might touch that is going to be clean as well. So you want to have that all prepared. As far as cleaning your cooking surfaces, especially if meat juices are getting on there, you might want to use paper towels so that you are just throwing them away. Or if you're going to use cloth towels, make sure you wash them frequently and in hot water so that if any bacteria is present, that we're killing it when we wash it. We want to rinse our fresh fruits and vegetables, including ones that have skin that we might not be consuming. So what brings to mind is melon. So if you're serving honeydew or watermelon, there may be dirt on the surface of the skin that when you cut into it can now go into the flesh of the watermelon or melon, and that can introduce some bacteria, and we don't want to do that. So definitely make sure, even if you're not eating that skin, that you're washing it. And under cold water, if you have a vegetable brush, especially for like honeydew or cantaloupe with those little like nooks, that really helps to get some of that dirt out. Okay, and separating is extremely important that we keep our raw animal products away from ready to eat foods like fresh produce or anything else. So having separate cutting boards, especially if there may be like different colors, is the best way to do this so that you're dedicating always this one cutting board for your raw products and one for things that are ready to just eat, like if you're cutting your tomatoes and things like that. And then be mindful of if you're bringing your meat out to the grill to cook it in one plate, that you use a separate plate once the food is cooked. That plate might have, of course, any juices that might have bacteria in it, so we don't want to put our cooked food back on that plate, even if we want to do less dishes. Okay, and then of course, cooking to proper temperatures, as I already mentioned with the thermometer, is very important because that's going to ensure that if there was any bacteria present that could cause an illness, that we're going to destroy it. So fish can be cooked to about 145 degrees and other whole cuts of meat to a minimum of 145 for the best safety. Ground meats need a higher temperature, at least 165, and that is because of the way it's processed. If you have, let's say, a cut of steak, the potential for illness is only on the surface of that steak where the bacteria might be present, whereas with ground meat, it gets mixed into the whole product. So there's potential that the inner portion, where some people might like to have it a little, more on the raw side, could have some bacteria. So if you feel like you're high risk and you want to be the most safe, you want to cook that to 160. And then poultry should be a minimum of 165. And again, you want to check on the thickest part, the innermost part of the wing or thigh, if it's the breast, the thickest part, to make sure it's cooked all the way. And again, I think it's a nice peace of mind to know that it's cooked, but then also not overcooked. And then chilling is very important. So this starts at the process as soon as we buy our groceries and bring that home through the time that we're serving them and packing away leftovers. So anything that you're buying at the grocery store that's perishable, you want to put it away quickly. And then if you have things that need to thaw before you're preparing them, it's recommended to do so in your refrigerator. So that does take some planning ahead, especially if it's a larger cut of meat. It will require more time. Or if you're going to do it before you forgot to do that, you can do it under cold water or in the microwave. I prefer the cold water method. I put a bowl in the sink and just let the water run over it at um, a low rate, just so I'm not using too much water, but it keeps the water moving, which helps. But then those foods do need to be cooked right away. Let's say you take out your turkey burgers and you thaw them and you're like, oh, I'm not going to cook these. We want you to cook those right away. And marinating foods is recommended for food safety to do that in the refrigerator as well, just because, some foods it's recommended to marinate an hour or longer. And so if that's sitting out on the counter for that time, we're going to be in that, start to enter that danger zone for temperature. And then after, when you want to put leftovers away, especially if they're larger portions that were maybe hot, you want to make sure they're in smaller containers that'll cool quickly so it doesn't heat up your entire refrigerator. Okay. So I do just have a couple recipes that I wanted to just go over with you. And if you're interested in getting these recipes, I'll have my email at the last slide of the presentation and I will email them to you. But this recipe is for a grilled flank steak with chimichurri. So flank steak, as I mentioned, is a leaner cut of red meat. So that's something you might want to enjoy. And chimichurri is a wonderful condiment sauce that is full of different herbs and spices. So some chimichurris contain just parsley, some are parsley and cilantro. It's your choice. So those are really high in antioxidants that obviously add some beautiful flavor, but also some health benefits. And then it has garlic and other spices. So I love when we can marry together that nutrition and good taste. And I think this is a really great example. And then if you're interested in having some vegetarian or vegan options, I will share a spicy sesame grilled tofu. Um, Definitely tofu can be the center of the plate for those who enjoy it. And these are nice thick slices here, which I think work well on the grill. You could also do tofu as like on a skewer or a kebab. It works well nicely that way. When you're buying tofu at the store, if you do want to grill it, we recommend like an extra firm tofu. It's just going to hold up better. And then this recipe, I believe, has instructions on how to press it to release some of the moisture. So what you might do is take your tofu out of the container, have it on a plate, put some paper towels or a clean kitchen towel on top, and something heavy on top. If you have a cast iron pan, that's great. Just let it sit for maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and you'll notice that a lot of that moisture will just come out. You don't want anything too heavy. If it's too heavy, it'll start to crack the tofu. So just heavy enough to apply some light pressure to draw out that moisture. And so if you're marinating the tofu, having that moisture removed is going to help the marinade absorb better. And if you've never had tofu, there's not a lot of flavor to it, so it's the marinade. It becomes about the flavor of the marinade. Okay, and then I have a recipe as well to share that is grilled pineapple, and this can be a delicious dessert option. This is recommended to have with like a little yogurt sauce with lime juice and lime zest, so it's a really tasty alternative to a more maybe flour-based dessert. And if you've never grilled fruit, I definitely encourage you to try that as well because you can do other fruits, especially stone fruit. So peaches and plums work really well as well. Just cut them in half and brush them lightly with maybe some avocado oil and put them on your hot grill, and you have a very healthy, tasty dessert.